Come and join us for this behind-the-scenes look at an incredible toy soldier collection.
My name is Mark Silverthorn. I'm the social media director of the Ontario Model Soldiers Society, and we are delighted to have a special guest today who is going to share his lifelong passion for collecting model soldiers. Brigadier General Darrell Dean is 82 years old. He was born and raised in British Columbia. He served in the Canadian Armed Forces for 54 years. He retired from the regular force in 1995 with the rank of Brigadier General. Shortly after the end of World War II, he received his first set of Britain's toy soldiers. This began a decades-long passion for collecting model soldiers. Darrell recently agreed to serve as the honorary president of the Ontario Model Soldiers Society. Darrell Dean has had a distinguished career in the Canadian Armed Forces. He has had numerous overseas postings in the Canadian military, including Egypt, Palestine, as well as Germany and London. Darrell excelled at judo, winning a number of championships overseas in the military. He holds a 5th degree black belt in judo. During a career in the Canadian military spanning 5 decades, Darrell served in a large number of roles in the Canadian Armed Forces in Canada. Throughout Darrell's lengthy military career, he has been an avid collector of model soldiers. We are delighted that Darrell has agreed to speak about his passion for model soldiers. And if you watch to the end of this video, we're going to ask Darrell to share a few tips that he has learned about the hobby. It's a pleasure to have you here today. The first picture that I'm going to put up is that of a Bren Gun Carrier. And I'd ask you just to tell us a little bit about that particular figure.
Well, Mark, that particular model of Britain's Bren Gun Carrier was under the Christmas tree at my house in 1946. Now, this is a rather strange thing to be receiving after a world war. But along with the Bren Gun Carrier were a number of other Britain sets, Highlanders and Grenadiers. And that got me interested in the hobby. Now, these were play toys for kids at that time, mainly made out of lead, because, in 46, they really weren't too worried about what kind of alloys were in these things. But anyway, we would bite the arms and adjust them and all the rest of it. And the Bren Gun Carrier is something that I've always held on to because it was the first thing I ever remember seeing with regards to a Britain's model. Now, at that time in 46, I really knew nothing about Britons or anything about toy soldiers. And that came over years of starting to collect. But what happened was I was taken down to a place called Seaforth Armories, which is where a Highland Regiment was. And at the back of the armories was a large field, and it was full of potholes and trenches and that kind of thing. And this friend of my father's took me down there and took me for a ride in this Bren Gun Carrier. Well, that sold me. I was going to join the army, and that was going to be it. And the idea did carry on, and the collection of toy soldiers, and particularly Britons, continued on. But that's always my memory of the Bren Gun Carrier, riding in a real one in this muddy field and having this one at home.
The next piece that we're going to have you share with us some thoughts about is your Britons Arabs of the desert?
Well, this goes back to my father again, who took me to see a movie called Beau Geste. And Beau Geste was the story of a diamond theft of three young boys that they had taken this diamond from their aunt. And no one ever admitted it. But the oldest one joined the Foreign Legion, so he was the first suspect. And all three of them ended up in a fort in the desert with a large group of army of Arabs that were attacking the fort. And in this movie, of course, two of them die, one lives, and you never really find out whatever happened to the individual that had the diamond. But in the long run, it tilted me towards the Arab Britons that were on the market, and how one of the things I built was a fort. I had a whole bunch of Foreign Legion soldiers, and then the Arabs came out, and I bought a bunch of them and had my display laid out. And that was what brought me there, was this movie, Beau Geste, with Gary Cooper.
Next pieces we're going to have you talk about are the Irish Royal Fusiliers.
Okay, they are actually called the Royal Irish Fusiliers.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No problem. This goes back again to when I was 12 years old. I was tall for my age, almost 6 feet. You had to be 14 years old to join Army cadets, but I went in there and met the height requirements, and nobody asked me my age, and I wasn't going to tell them the real age anyway. And I joined the Irish Fusiliers, the Vancouver Regiment here in Canada. And we were allied with the Royal Irish in Northern Ireland. So those figures were produced in 1953 for Queen Elizabeth's coronation. And so I was serving in the regiment as a cadet from the age of 12 until 17, when I then went to the militia. Now, my dad's friend that took me for the ride in a Bren Gun Carrier served in a Highland regiment. When I went home and told my dad about this and I wanted to join the Army, he said, "You're not joining a Highland regiment, you'll join an Irish regiment." My family background, he says. And so that's how I ended up in the Irish Fusiliers. Now, the interesting thing about these figures is that the carbine, that is what people would call a beret, but it's a carbine, is pulled down to the wrong side. It was a mistake made by Britons. I don't think anybody caught it for years.
So, General, do you have some advice for people who are new to the hobby of collecting model soldiers?
I do. The biggest thing I can tell you is, if you're just starting out, find a mentor. Write in your own, if you're part of the Ontario Model Soldier Society and you join the society and you're just starting collecting, get a mentor in that group and they will help you. But yes, that would be my advice to young collectors that are just starting. And when I say young, I mean that's anywhere from, I don't know, I was 6 or 7 when I started, but certainly, young teenagers and young adults, get a mentor in your organization. That's the best thing to do. and they'll kind of guide you. What do you want to collect? Do you want plastic? Do you want alloy? Um, do you want old or do you want new? I think a mentor to get you in the right direction and really give you some guidance on what you want to collect and where to collect and how to go and find these things. If I had a mentor, I probably would have been better in purchasing things that I was looking for, um, and that would have helped because I did buy stuff that later on, you got 30 Greek Ev zones. They don't fit into my into my battlefields anywhere. So you do the trade and sell and reinvest your sales back into something that fits in with what you do. The big thing now, as I notice, is that there are a lot of fine toy soldier makers now. I mean, I've got all sorts of different makers models, but they are expensive. They are expensive. When I think of what I was paying when I started at 60 cents a box, and now you're up to 120, $140 a box. That's just for a standard box of six figures. That's not mounted figures, which are even more. So I wasn't into painting them or putting them together. I was buying the commercial boxes, but there are a lot of people that like to assemble their own and paint their own. And there's some good reference books out now on assembling and painting figures and all the rest of it. That's certainly a more economic way of going by buying soldiers and assembling them and painting them yourselves. They're quite a bit cheaper. And it gives.
There's also birthdays and Christmas too. I mean, if you want to ask your relatives to get you a toy soldier on your birthday or Christmas, that's another way to pick up a few figures.
Exactly. The thing is, you've got in today's world, they're not sold commercially as toys. They're sold more by makers and agents of the makers, and you don't see them on display in stores anymore. It's all on the internet.